A week ago, when the Super 12 stages started, if you told me that a week later New Zealand and Sri Lanka would be fighting for the top spot, I wouldn't have believed you. But if you told me that I was going to do the show on the next Saturday with Cricbuzz Live OGs, I would have, because I saw the roster and I got very excited. Hello and welcome. You're watching Cricbuzz Live with me, Mr. Harsha Bhogle from Australia, and Joy Bhattacharya. Welcome along, gentlemen. How's it going? It seems like summer set in Perth. Harsha?
Summer in Perth. Yeah. I've just gone out for a walk and I've come back to put on an extra layer of clothes. Yesterday, I was wearing a t-shirt. Today, it is 15, feels like 13 in the afternoon.
Wow.
And tomorrow, and this is news for Ashwin and Dinesh Karthik, it is going to be even colder. So suddenly there's a cold front in Perth and I've suddenly started unpacking all the thermals that I'm carrying with me.
and while Joy and I sitting here in Bombay are wearing what, 2-3 layers.
He's in a t-shirt out.
Yeah. But it's been that kind.
Because I'm in my room.
Yeah.
I'm in my room with the AC turned on 25 on heating.
Oh, lovely, lovely. But it's what it is. I mean, we saw so many games washed out, and it's been such a disappointment, Harsha. I mean, we were speaking to Michael yesterday as well, and it's been a disappointment all around because not only some big games were washed out, but also it was just frustrating because you'd gotten a great build-up, especially in this group, which is going to be so competitive. To share points is just not on.
And the Melbourne weather at the moment is a bit like the Sri Lankan fast bowlers. You never know what's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to be left.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I feel for Sri Lanka. I think with what they have, they've put up a great fight to come so far. But luckily, I think there's only one more game now.
Yeah, in the 6th.
Melbourne before you get into the knockout. So we're done with the washouts. Hopefully, Sydney is better. The moment you go up further north to Brisbane, it starts to get a little better. Extreme west, at least there's no chance of rain, I'm told, in Perth. Mm-hmm. So at least the weather will get better. And in this group, we'll start having to earn points, not by washouts, but by actually playing.
That is true. But what it has done is it's really spiced up the equations, Joy, in this group. I mean, as I said, a week back, Sri Lanka wouldn't be thinking that they'd be competing for the top spot. And yet here they are now. They win this game, they go on top of this group, which was the more competitive of the two.
They do, and the interesting part about it is that they are the only team right now who doesn't have an injury, doesn't have a game washed out.
Yeah.
So what happens is they and Afghanistan have got 2 washed out, but that means they're also in even points. But that means that it's very unlikely to be a run rate issue for Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
All Sri Lanka has to worry about is winning their matches. And of course, it's a tough fight from where they are right now. But if Sri Lanka can beat England and if they win today, this could be very, very definitive. They do not need to worry about run rate. And everyone other than them and New Zealand has to worry about run rate.
Yeah.
And you have a look at that, you see that New Zealand is basically controlling this table.
Yeah.
And the reason they've done it is they've won with such a big margin in their first match. You talk about run rate, you talked about the way the Australians gave away those wickets, but that's what's happened. What's happened as a result is everything is in New Zealand's hands.
Yeah.
If they beat England, whatever they do now will control how the group will play out. The rest of the members will play out.
Yeah. It's so classic New Zealand, Harsha. I mean, every time at the start of the tournament, you don't really think of New Zealand and then suddenly, quietly, they just make their way and make those giant strides towards the semi-final. Here again, they're doing just that.
I mean, I'm sticking my neck out and saying New Zealand win today, they've qualified. Because they then only have to beat Ireland to go past 7 points. 7 is the maximum that England and Australia can get to. If they beat Sri Lanka today, Sri Lanka can't get to 7 either. So if New Zealand win today, then I think they can start thinking about where they're playing their semi-final. Because if you look where they are now, if they win all, they can get to 9. Yeah. But even if they lose to England, they still finish with 7. They win today, they beat Ireland, they finish 7. The maximum England and Australia can get to is 7. And Sri Lanka will have to do New Zealand will have to do something completely ridiculous to their net run rate. And that's not going to happen because they're winning 2 more games. So I think if they win today, they've qualified effectively. I know they've got to beat Ireland, and that's something sort of talking down Ireland in a way. So I'm sorry about that. But they're expected to beat Ireland. And then it will come down to England and Australia and how well they win their remaining games. Australia will have to win big against Ireland and Afghanistan. And England will have to not only beat Sri Lanka well at the Sydney cricket ground, but also play New Zealand. So funnily, if Australia can take care of their net run rate, at the moment, it's looking more New Zealand-Australia.
Yeah, and that's so true. And especially with that first win, I mean, After that, the number of washouts they've had, New Zealand perhaps would be a little worried, saying that we didn't do anything wrong and suddenly we have 3 more teams at the same points with us, level pegging. But that net run rate is going to really help them, even if their points are on odd. As Harsha said, one, they have one extra game up their sleeve, and two, just the confidence of that convincing win against Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kind of players, they're going to have Daryl Mitchell probably come back again for Mark Chapman. They have a team that is ideally suited for playing in these conditions. Because the one thing that we always talk about is New Zealand fast bowlers taking wickets up front. And Trent Boult and Tim Southee have done that not just for New Zealand but around the world. But what we don't talk about enough is the fact that they have a pair of fantastic T20 spinners. I mean, you take those 2 spinners out there, what Santner does for you and Ish Sodhi does for you, they're both absolutely brilliant bowlers. And in grounds like this, they're going to make a difference. They're also, remember, more used to bowling in conditions like this. Like Hasaranga has gone for runs before, but don't forget that Hasaranga is not used to possibly bowling in the kind of bouncy conditions that, say, a Ish Sodhi and a Santner are used to.
Yeah, especially at the Sydney Cricket Ground now.
Right. Yeah. No, Joy's right, because if you see Hasaranga's record in Australia before this, it wasn't great. And now after Marcus Stoinis went after him, it looks even worse. And I wonder if there's a message there for the Neeshams and Daryl Mitchell, who's indeed back in the side, Neesham and Daryl Mitchell, to say, okay, let's go after Hasaranga, and then let's see how their side stacks up after that.
Yeah.
So if they can take on spin, but as it turns out, New Zealand are batting first, and the teams that have batted first have won so far. This is actually a very different tournament in that if you bat first and score runs, you've got a very good chance of winning. I think this is New Zealand's most favoured team. I think all things considered, they would like to go in. If it was a final, they would like to go in with this side.
Yeah, and it covers all bases as well, especially at the Sydney Cricket Ground where they won their first game. And ever since then, as Harsha also mentioned, Joy, the pitch seems to be slowing down as the game progresses. We saw that in the South Africa-Bangladesh game as well. And then India-Netherlands, off-pace deliveries really worked. And that's where you're right. Players like Santner and Ish Sodhi and the likes can really come into play.
I think this Sydney is where they're going to play their biggest part. But I feel even Hasaranga has his best chance is Sydney.
Okay.
His best opportunity is Sydney. And look, the truth of it is, because they have very inexperienced fast bowlers now, the core of that Sri Lanka attack is Hasaranga and Thikshana. They're really depending on those 2 to do it for them. And if those 2 don't sort of put in the middle, they don't, stop the running, they don't sort of cramp up the run rate, start taking wickets in the middle, they're going to be in real trouble. And if you look at the way that these decisions are taken, see, when do people start batting first? And you look at that again, Tahir Kumara, Kasun Rajitha has to come in because, Binura Fernando is out. Again, the other big worry is that they haven't really got runs from Dashun Shanaka.
Yeah.
And Bhanuka Rajapaksa, he spoke before, and, players are what they are. They spoke about being the player of the tournament and, possibilities and all that. And so far, it hasn't really turned out for him. He'll really need to switch it on.
Yeah.
I feel though Sri Lanka had one advantage. Of course, they got a lot of injuries. They got a run in. After that first toss against Namibia, they got an opportunity to get into the tournament, get their players into some sort of batting form, bowling form, some sort of understanding of their conditions. But this is the big match.
Yeah.
I think Sri Lanka will think if they win this one, they have a shot. If they're out here, I don't think. I think they'll just fade away after this.
Yeah, let's have a look at that Sri Lanka 11 again. And Kasun Rajitha does come back in, Harsha. But the last time he played a T20I was in October 2019. So that's how far they've had to go. And he gave away 75 runs in his 4 overs.
I mean, if you look at the number of people they are without and see where in the pecking order would Kasun Rajitha have been in among the quicker bowlers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would actually have gone with Patirana. I talked to Russell about it. I said, why not Patirana? They've not seen enough maybe of Patirana. They think Rajitha can move the ball around a little bit, but Patirana had pace. But you're without. I think the first 3 picked for them in this form would have been Dushmantha Chamira, Madhushanka and Madhushanan. All 3 are gone. Binura Fernando comes in. He's not the most athletic person, but he gets 5 balls. He's gone as well. So Sri Lanka saying, okay, any one of you, quick, come along. You must be saying, okay, if it was Brisbane, we had a chance because teams win in Brisbane with no idea who their bowlers are going to be.
Famously, exactly where I was coming.
Yeah.
That T. Natarajan, who would know that a net bowler would be playing for India? So, Sri Lanka would probably be looking at that as well.
Yeah, but this ain't no Brisbane. This is the Sydney Cricket Ground. And the one guy who'd love every bit of it is Finn Allen. Harsha, how good was Finn Allen in that opening game? And just his stroke play to keep out Martin Guptill, such an experienced T20 campaigner from the side, has to take some performances like that. And he's been churning them out all year long now.
What's going to be interesting is if Finn Allen gets out early. Because then you've got Devon Conway, who builds his innings and achieves a very good strike rate as he goes along. And Kane Williamson, that's a great opportunity to slip some overs in. But because they bat so deep, look, today Daryl Mitchell is back. Then they've got Neesham at 6. They've got Santner, Southey. They're batting all the way down to 8, 9. With Glenn Phillips at 4. So one player can be given the license to go. And really, I tell you what, you saw the other day against Australia. Finn Allen plays 3 overs. That's actually, he made 39, 40 or so thereabouts. Yeah. So Finn Allen plays a power play. He can go shopping after that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think he did also in the last game. Look at those strike rates. And while this World Cup hasn't been about 6 hitting, Joy, throughout this World Cup, we've seen that it's more important to build those partnerships, really get set, and then perhaps explode towards the end. And yet, Finn Allen seems to be the only exception that I can think of who's really dealing in 6s.
No, but remember, it's one fantastic performance.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, it's one fantastic performance. He got there early. And I think what Harsha is referring to is a very important thing. That if Devon Conway builds innings, okay, and other than 2019 when, he went for 635 runs, Kane Williamson has not been known to have a fantastic strike rate. Yeah. What happens if those two are stuck in the middle? And then you reach over 6, 7, 8. You starting to put pressure on the guys in the back. And the interesting thing will be, Sri Lanka, traditionally New Zealand doesn't do it. Will they play around with their batting order in that case? Yeah. If Finn Allen goes out early, do they promote, say, a Mitchell or a Neesham, who are far more likely to tonk the ball than, say, a Williamson early? Yeah. Because these are decisions you need to take. These are decisions that are taken for you if you're batting second. You don't need to worry about these decisions because they're taken for you. But in this case, the important thing about batting first, and that's very interesting, because when you're batting first, when do you bat first? You bat first when you know, A, the weather is going to be fine throughout, so Duckworth probably will not play a factor. You bat first under one other condition. You know how much you want to get on a pitch. That's when you bat first. Because then you know that, okay, I'm going to try and aim for a 180. If I get 180, maybe I can take it to 200. But I know that if I get 180, I'll be happy with what I have. Because batting first is about knowing what target you set. That's when you bat first. People bat second because they don't know how much this pitch has. So clearly, New Zealand is confident that they're reading these conditions well. And that's interesting for me. The second is, I think they feel that the Sri Lankan, the batting is young and, Shanaka and all have not hit form. Perhaps putting a little pressure on them, the likes of Bolt and all coming in early. Yeah. They think they have the bowling to contain most teams. So I think interesting decision for teams to start batting first. The results are seeming to prove that, but it's a brave one as well in its own way.
Now, Finn Allen is largely a power play specialist, Harsha. If you look at his strike rate, it is immense inside the power play. Where are you placed on batters like Finn Allen? Because as you said, 4 overs, 40, he can go shopping. Is that a role that we will see in the future as well? More batters donning that role for teams?
I don't know if you can have too many like that, because you get 3 top edges up in the air, all 3 caught, suddenly the game has changed. Yeah. So I think you give one player the license. Though I think Finn Allen is a better player than just close your eyes and swing hard at the ball. I think he's a better player than that. It'll be interesting to see how he is when pace is taken off. Because when Australia came at him, they had a lot of pace bowling coming at him. He might prefer playing Lahiru Kumara, who I thought was really good in the other game. Yeah. He's got genuine pace. But most matches that I've seen Lahiru Kumara bowl, he tends to be a little erratic, a little wayward. If he gives Finn Allen that room, then it could turn out to be a tough contest. Because given their seam bowling reserve, there's Karunaratne, who's their 5th bowler. He's full of energy. Yeah. He's a decent third seamer. But if Kasun Rajitha gets hit, Dasun Chanaka is a very reluctant bowler. Then suddenly, by the time the power play is on, you're looking around to see, okay, when can I get Theekshana in? Because I think he's been the best bowler so far. You look at Theekshana. Yeah. So I think Finn Allen versus Lahiru Kumara will be a really good battle early on. If Sri Lanka can win that, they're in the game. If Sri Lanka lose that battle, it's going to be an uphill climb from there on.
It will be, especially the kind of form that Wanindu Hasaranga has been enjoying, and Harsha did allude to that just a while back. But it's been, spinners have done well in this tournament. It's not like they haven't, and yet to see Hasaranga go for those kinds of runs at Perth, a pitch that's known for its pace and bounce, and yet, look at that, he started it off well, but especially in the last game, how much does that dent your confidence as a bowler?
Look, I think he's a leg spinner and he's a mystery bowler leg spinner. They are going to go. I mean, you see the Kuldeep Yadavs of this world, they'll go. But remember, he's still the joint highest wicket taker in this tournament.
Yeah.
And both Harsha and me had Hasaranga right up there because just in terms of the number of wickets he'll take, because you're not deciding, you're asking who will take the maximum wickets. You're not talking about economy rate. He's a kind of guy who will get wickets, and I think he'll get wickets today as well. Again, they say about leg spinners that leg spinners are the bowlers who get the maximum wickets of bad deliveries. And that's true. A lot of their good deliveries disappear, but they get wickets of their bad deliveries as well.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a leg spinner and a top leg spinner like Hasaranga is, if you're a top bowler like he is, you're used to getting hit. You're not going to flinch from getting a few sixes hit. So they're like strikers. They forget about their last game. They'll go for this one. I back Hasaranga. I think he's a strong enough player. He's mentally strong. I don't think he's going to worry about what happened in the previous match. And I think he's going to fancy his chances at Sydney.
That was a very subtle flex of you.
One other thing, though, Tanay. Yeah. So there's one other thing with Hasaranga. If you notice, he gets his wickets because his bounce is very low. My feeling is when you play on tracks where the ball is coming on with very good bounce, then the height that he will generate off the pitch, which he will not get in Asia or somewhere else, actually works against him because it then bounces to a good hittable height.
Yeah.
So Sydney is not probably as hard as bouncy as the Optus or even as we've seen so far at Melbourne. So he might get a little bit more. But I think he might have preferred bowling second on this track. So it'll be interesting to see how he counters the surfaces because he's almost been a bank for them. Sri Lanka know, like India did in the good old days, things go wrong, okay, here's Anil Kumble in. Things are going well, okay, here's Anil Kumble in. I want wickets, okay, here's Anil Kumble. I want to keep runs down, here's Anil Kumble. I think Hasaranga is that kind of player for them. So it's very critical how he bowls his four. He normally comes on after the power play. That's why I keep saying that power play is such a big part.
Yeah, and you're so right about the bounce. The moment you said that, the picture that came into my mind was him trying to go all Kedar Jadhav in Perth, trying to just diminish the bounce as much as possible. So you're right. But I also noticed, if you guys did as well, do let us know, that there was a very subtle flex from Joy saying Harsha and I called for Vanindu Hasaranga to be the leading wicket taker, and he is. That was a very subtle flex. I'll also flex. I said Fane Allen will be the breakout star this time around. He's only played one innings, but yeah.
You had to just drag it back and put it in.
Absolutely, I had to. How could I not flex? But
no, I was also saying one more thing, and I just think I must ask Harsha about this because I feel this tournament in some ways is the spirit of 2008. Okay? 2008, who were the big stars? Okay? Virat Kohli. Okay? Virat Kohli is the big one for India. Kane Williamson, Tim Southee, Trent Bolt. Okay?
Yeah.
South Africa, our opponents in the final. Who's the captain of South Africa at that time? Supposed to be the biggest star at that time emerging. A certain Wayne Parnell.
Okay.
Who's their top batsman? Riley Russo. So somewhere, especially a lot of the teams, it's sort of the spirit of 2008 that's coming back. And it's nice to see all these, exactly 14 years since they had their big time. 14 years is a long time in international cricket. Just to see players at that age start to come back, and especially for Parnell and, Riley Russo, the fact that they've, come back and doing so well is fantastic.
It is, yeah. Have you given away a Joy Factor question? I think Harsha, he has. He's given away a Joy Factor question.
No, Joy speaks in Joy Factor questions.
Oh, yes, correct.
You know how it is? They say about Lata Mangeshkar that she spoke in Sur.
Correct.
That Lata Mangeshkar spoke in a rag. Like that, Joy speaks in Joy Factor questions and he answers in Joy Factor answers.
That is so true. Now, New Zealand are batting first. They've won the toss, and the one question mark around Kane Williamson stood for a very long time, Harsha. And we were speaking to Zahir Khan here on the show, and he said that this might be the tournament for batters like Kane Williamson and the Steve Smiths. Of course, Steve Smith hasn't featured in a playing 11. But because of the ground dimensions, because of the kind of cricket we've seen so far in the tournament, Kane Williamson might just be very well suited to just be that access point for the others to build partnerships around.
And if he can explode, look at Virat Kohli's first 10 balls before this World Cup and during this World Cup. Virat Kohli's realized too that this is not see the ball hit through the line first ball kind, which we saw a little bit of during the Asia Cup. We saw him trying to do that during the IPL, but we saw a little bit of that during the Asia Cup. Now Virat Kohli saying, no, I'll take my time because I know I can hit runs at the end. So Williamson has been given that little bit of leeway, but they know that they've got Glenn Phillips, Mitchell, Neesham and the others to follow. So if he scores at 125 and say he makes 60 of 45 balls, that's about 130. It's still absolutely fine for Kane Williamson, especially if Finn Allen takes off and gives them that space, because by then Devon Conway would have started to pick up as well. And it's not as if Conway's a strokeless wonder during the power play. No, Conway's very capable of playing shots too. But you're right about Williamson. This is that kind of tournament that is allowing those players to flower, because if you want to get to 160, and 160 is a decent score in other than Sydney. Sydney, you need 175, 180, but most places 160 is a good score. You can play like that.
Yeah. You agree with that as well, Joy?
Absolutely. And if you see, even when Babar Azam was in the match against India, he was asked, what's a good score? And he said, 160 is good. So they are looking at 160. This is not the UAE. This is not India. This is not subcontinental conditions. Guys are looking at scores like that. And the moment you have scores of 160, means strike rates of 125 are relevant.
Yeah, correct.
Strike rates of 125 are irrelevant when you start coming to places like the UAE. And I think that is the difference. The only point is now how so far New Zealand has not needed him to do that.
Yeah, precisely.
Because Finn Allen got going, Devon Conway got going, they got going. It's not going to come off every day, and the stakes are going to keep rising. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Also, tactically, is New Zealand a team which is going to say we are a bat-first team? Because that also will say that, okay, we have the bowling arsenal to contain everyone. Are we a bat-first team then? And that's a very interesting thing. If a team says that throughout the tournament, we are not a chasing team, we are a bat-first team, which is a complete change in philosophy.
Yeah, but personally, I've
Joy makes a valid point, actually. Yeah. Joy makes a valid point. If you're playing 160 games, so 160 is a 135 strike rate kind of game. About 133, 134 strike rate kind of game. Yep. If you can give a lot of substance to your innings at 125, then you can have a lot of people scoring at 180, 200 in small bursts, which is possible, to still get you to 160. And remember, extras will always help you with 7 or 8. If you got a wild bowler, extras might help you with a little bit more. So you only have to make 150, 152 runs. Yeah. Then the 125 strike rate player who gives substance is worth it. I don't know at Sydney, because in Sydney, 175, 180 seems to be the par score. But the moment you say 160, the whole calculation on how you play can change.
It does. And which is why players like Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, who like to take their time initially, really matter. But the one thing that I've personally liked about this World Cup, and you've watched it from very close quarters, Harsha, is just the battle between the bat and ball. I mean, throughout this tournament, on all tracks, it's never seemed like a lopsided encounter, and that's been so good to see.
And wonderful for bowlers. Huh? I actually think that Pakistan got the right combination picking four seamers. This is definitely a four seamers kind of surface. So don't be surprised if you see a little bit of Nisham, a little bit of Daryl Mitchell. If required at all, maybe they won't go that far. But this is definitely a four seamers wicket. And look at who would have thought that India versus Pakistan, India would have had more overs of pace than Pakistan would. Yeah. So I think people are realizing this is a four seamer surface. So one of the four seamers World Cup. So one of your bowlers, if he can, one of your batsmen can give you runs, it makes a big difference. But yes, the bowlers are alive. The bowlers are well. The bowlers are asking questions. Did you see the other night blessing Muzarabani and Angara?
Yes.
Two tall bowlers. How incredible they bowled at the end. The tall bowlers hitting the deck are doing so well.
Yeah. And that's so good to see. And which is why the disappointment is apparent in everyone when a full day is washed out. I mean, we had Michael Vaughan here and he was really livid. He said that you've got to cover the whole ground, you've got to do other things. And no matter how much confidence you have in your own drainage system, if it's raining like it has been in Melbourne, you have to do every effort to make sure that some sort of a game happens, because the contest out there is brilliant and we want to see more of it.
See, first I'll just say that it has been a very equal contest, and not just bat and ball. The other equal contest that you're seeing is that between so-called, group stage nations and the proper nations. I mean, how Ireland have played in this tournament, how the Netherlands have played in this tournament, how Zimbabwe has played in this tournament. So you're seeing that also, that as you come to T20 cricket, that difference between so-called top sides, the top 8 and the other 4, is completely disappearing. And that's fantastic. So it's an equal tournament in both senses, with bat and ball and with teams and so-called, established teams and so-called outsider teams. Yeah. And you just think of a tournament. You're having an absolutely fantastic tournament you haven't seen without the West Indies. I mean, how often could you have said that in world cricket? That West Indies are out and yet this tournament is looking very rich. Coming to that, you were talking about rain. I mean, how many matches have played in October in Australia? How often have you played cricket? Yeah. You just had no option. I mean, you were in a situation where you were stuck. So it is terrible. But look, you're not... Sydney is MCG is a huge ground. Okay? I know how difficult it was to change the drainage system of something like the Eden Gardens. It took about 2 years to change it. It's very difficult to do it for just one competition, for one match. So it's not going to happen that easily.
Joy, there's a reason they're playing the games in October. If you remember the last 2019 World Cup, that had a couple of rained out matches as well. When did that start? That started mid-May. When is the best season to play in England? July, August.
Precisely.
When is the best season to play cricket in Australia? December, January, going into February, middle of November. When does the World Cup end? Middle of November. So countries that get their own revenue, get their revenue from their own bilateral series and their own season, will play their cricket at the best time. So you see that everywhere. The best cricket is always reserved for the home side. This tournament should have begun in sort of mid-November. But that would have then gone into a major part of the Australian season. I think 50-over World Cups in England have to be played in July and August, because that is when you have the best conditions to play cricket. But that's the reason this has started early. You never play cricket in Australia so early unless you're playing up north. So that's the reason we're getting this kind of weather. Also, it's been a much longer winter than normal. Much longer winter than normal. And therefore, and also raining a little bit more, but much longer winter than normal.
That comes from a personal pain point for you as well. It does.
I could
16
see it.
degrees in Perth. I could feel it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have the space, in our mid-inning show, I'll pull out all the warm clothes that I've got. I've got a bag full of thermals and warm clothes.
Yeah.
Because you see, I come from Mumbai, where the temperature turns 20, 22, we all get excited.
Yeah, everyone's excited here already. I heard someone say.
So, I'm also putting it out there that all of you, any one of you, especially in Perth, if you're there, if you're a Bengali there, get Harsha Bhogle a monkey cap.
Yes, hashtag
Every
Harsha
Bengali,
monkey cap.
get Harsha a monkey cap. He needs a monkey cap. Bengalis need to come to the aid of the nation. He is the voice of Indian cricket. I cannot have him denied. Bring Harsha a monkey cap, please. If you're in Perth and listening to this, I'm reaching out personally to each and every one of you.
Thank you so much.
Harsha, you're not even grateful.
Yeah, but before we
I
go,
don't want a monkey cap.
but you said it's 16, 13 degrees outside, so it might come to your aid.
I'll wear thermals. I've just got myself a turtleneck thermal as well. So I'll put on a turtleneck thermal.
Yeah, and then put on a beanie.
Don't worry,
Something.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, something that two things solve. A monkey
One
cap
thing
can
you
solve.
will know though, if it's very cold and I'm doing the presentation, it'll be a very short presentation.
We'll watch out for that. We will certainly watch out for that. But before we go, Harsha, I mean, you've seen all the action in week one. What has been your top moment from week one? Because there have been many.
My top moment, there've been so many. Even in the qualification, the fact that Namibia missed out a little bit, that Ireland beat the West Indies the way they did. It's been an extraordinary World Cup. I think Joy alluded to it. It's been an extraordinary World Cup. We were critical of the fact that it started early, but in the cricket we've had a fabulous World Cup. But I can tell you right now, if there is a greater moment than that India-Pakistan finish, then it will have been a blessed World Cup, because that performance from Virat Kohli, we might have had that we might have had a very interesting moment in the Pakistan-Zimbabwe game if Pakistan had managed to run 2 and go into a super over, because you would then have had an officially morally sanctioned 17-yard single allowed. It is in the spirit of the game to run less and get a draw and get a tie.
Yeah, that's a topic we can debate on all day.
But that's it.
That's a topic you can debate on all day. But the one thing we can't debate on is the Joy Factor questions, and that they are very, very tough. What has Joyda got for us today? Let's have a look. Joyda.
I don't think today is very tough, but 3 cricketers made their test debut in the same game back in 2011. One got 6 wickets, the other got a total of 36 runs. And the third is still playing for India. Name all 3.
Any ideas, Harsha? Any? I don't understand.
Harsha knows the answer also.
Oh, he does?
I'm
the only one then. I'm the exception. So let me take the predictions. The only place where I stand a chance to win. What are the... You're giving a hint, Harsha. No, don't.
He is giving a
hint. Because I read the answer, so I know. But let's get the predictions. New Zealand have won the toss, opted to bat first at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Harsha, how many are they getting?
I'm going 178.
178, Troy.
Yeah, I'll also go high. I was also thinking of going 174, but I'll put some distance between Harsha and myself. I'll go
Why?
171.
Go close, no? That's okay. Go close.
No, he's saying-
Go close.
I know.
What-
171.
what you
Glenn
want to
Turner.
say?
He got 171, I think, in the first World Cup. So I'll go with Glenn Turner.
All right.
171.
I'll go 165. What are your predictions? Don't forget to tell us. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live and also hashtag Get Harsha a Monkey Cap in Perth. If you're there, it was such a heartfelt appeal from Joy. Don't forget to get it to him. And if you send it, Joyda will personally send an award for you from here. You will?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Or text you Joy Factor answers in advance. Done? Deal?
It's a deal.
We got a deal. Thank you so much to Harsha Bhogle. Thank you so much to Joy Bhattacharya for joining in. Thank you so much to all of you as well. We'll see you at the end of 10 overs with Cricbuzz Combox and then on Cricbuzz Live. This was Cricbuzz Live. My name is Tanay Tiwari. Thank you so much for watching.